welcome you. We've got some really interesting material you send over, all exploring this big human question. How do we actually get stronger, build resilience, maybe even, become unshakable when life inevitably throws things our way?
Exactly. We're diving into what it really means to handle those challenges. Life serves up, criticism that really stings, or rejection, loss, even betrayal.
Yeah, those are the moments that test us, aren't they?
They really are. And these sources, they dig right into how we typically respond.
And what's really compelling, I found, across these sources is this constant human thing. We just want to avoid the pain.
Right. Put up walls.
Totally. Become immune somehow.
Yeah.
But the twist in the material you shared is, it suggests that very attempt to escape might be what keeps us stuck.
That's such a key point right from the start. It's like our efforts to dodge the pain, they can actually give it more power.
Making us hostages, as the sources put it.
Yeah, hostages to our own fear of feeling bad. And this is where someone like Carl Jung comes, and his work, In-Depth Psychology, gives us a really powerful way to understand this.
Okay. So, our goal here in this deep dive is to really unpack these ideas, to figure out how we can find genuine strength, not by running away, but by understanding, by engaging with it.
Offering new perspective on resilience, maybe. Less about building forts.
Yeah, exactly. More about, let's get into it. Okay, so this first big idea, the illusion of control and the nature of pain itself.
Right.
The sources are pretty blunt. Trying to avoid pain gives it power. The more we try to numb out, hide,
the more you're a prisoner to that need for numbness. Yeah, the hostage image is strong.
It really is. Because if your main goal is just not feeling bad,
your whole life gets built around that avoidance. You're always standing for threats, right? And that's exhausting. It controls you.
And then Jung's quote hits hard. We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become.
That really shifts the focus back onto us, doesn't it?
It does. And have you ever felt like you're at sort of an emotional disadvantage sometimes, like others just handle things better?
Yeah, like they have some secret resilience code.
Right. But these sources say, maybe that feeling can change.
And what's fascinating is how they separate the event from our reaction. The criticism, the rejection, the loss. The sources say those aren't the things that inflict the deepest pain.
No, it's what those events activate within you. That's the key phrase.
Exactly, that open wound inside, or the story you tell yourself. Maybe old trauma, or just this feeling of emptiness.
That's the real source of the hurt, it seems.
And that helps explain, why some people can face huge challenges with clarity, while others crumble over something seemingly smaller.
That's not what happens.
It's where it hits inside you, what it resonates with that's maybe still unresolved.
Okay, and this leads to that, really. Well, it's called an uncomfortable truth in the sources. This belief we have, maybe unconsciously, that if we're just good enough, smart enough, successful enough,
we can somehow control how people treat us and avoid getting hurt.
Yeah. But trying to control external validation, that's just constant tension, isn't it? Because life and people are unpredictable.
Totally. The sources basically say that's an illusion we need to let go of.
So the takeaway isn't get tougher skin or build higher walls. It's kind of the opposite.
Right. It's about consciously choosing to stop protecting yourself from suffering and instead cultivate more awareness of it.
That feels so backwards to how we normally operate, though.
It does, but think about it. External stuff only gets real power if it finds that echo within you, right? If it triggers something already there.
Which means the real fight isn't out there.
No. The true battlefield lies deep inside, in our unconscious.
Okay, the unconscious. We've mentioned it a few times. Let's really dig in here. What is the unconscious according to these sources, and why is it so influential?
Well, it's not just like a dusty attic for forgotten stuff. The forces describe it as this dynamic, active force.
Active? How so?
It holds memories, sure, but also unresolved trauma, hidden desires, deep fears, stuff we're not aware of, mostly.
But it still affects us.
Hugely. It shapes our feelings, our reactions, our choices, often without us realizing why.
And that Jung quote again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Wow.
makes you think, right?
Yeah.
About those patterns you can't shake, or random waves of sadness or anger.
Yeah, the sources suggest they're not just random emotional weather. They have roots.
Exactly. They're like messages coming from parts of you that have been forgotten, ignored, or repressed, signals trying to get your attention.
Okay, that explains why, like, a certain word can totally derail one person and someone else just shrugs it off.
It's hitting those sensitive points within you that are still alive, wounds that haven't been looked at consciously.
And just trying to push those feelings down or judge them, that doesn't work.
Nope. Jung said condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Ignoring them just drives them deeper.
And then they pop up sideways, right? Like in toxic relationships or patterns of self-sabotage.
They're just that constant low-level anxiety you can't explain. It's like the hidden parts are pulling the strings.
So the core message is, stop running. Look inward.
Pretty much. Understanding your unconscious is key to not being, as they say, an emotional puppet.
Huh. I like that.
And ironically, the more you try to shield yourself from external pain.
The more vulnerable you actually become to the internal stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so if avoidance isn't the path, what is? This idea of integration seems really central to finding that true emotional strength. What does that actually mean?
Well, first, it challenges that common idea of strength being, closed off.
Right, the tough guy, nothing affects me persona.
Yeah, building that emotional armor. But the sources say, often inside that armor, there's still this internal bleeding because the feelings haven't actually been dealt with or understood.
That connects to Jung's point about just being human with other humans, right? Be just another human soul.
Yes. Drop the act. Drop the need to seem strong or invulnerable or always in control.
So real strength isn't about not feeling.
No, it's about embracing it all. Integration means consciously acknowledging, accepting, bringing those buried parts, the shadows, fears, flaws, insecurities into the light.
Making peace with the whole package.
Making peace. It's not about being immune to pain. It's about accepting all of yourself.
And when you do that,
Yeah,
you're less reactive. You have more choice in how you respond.
precisely. You shift from being that emotional puppet, just reacting unconsciously, to having more agency. That's the freedom the sources talk about. True resilience.
And this links directly to Jung's big idea, individuation.
His central concept. It's this lifelong journey of becoming who you really are, not just who society or your parents expect you to be.
It's like a conversation between your conscious self and all that unconscious stuff.
An ongoing conversation, yeah, an integration. It's not about perfection, it's about becoming whole.
Which brings us back to running from pain makes it chase you, makes you more fragile.
But facing yourself, honestly, with all that is beautiful and ugly, noble and shameful, as one source beautifully puts it.
Then external things lose their power to completely break you.
Exactly. But it takes courage, real courage, to look within, drop the masks, and just feel.
Now let's talk about suffering itself. The sources have this kind of paradoxical take. Suffering as a gateway to strength. That goes against everything we're taught.
It really does. We learned pretty early on. Pain is bad, weakness, failure. Avoid it, fix it, numb it.
Society definitely pushes that message.
So we run, we distract, we suppress. But the sources argue that ignored suffering, it doesn't vanish.
It just changes shape
Yeah.
to anxiety, anger, apathy.
Yeah, and often we don't even realize the connection. That line, ignored pain does not disappear, it just digs tunnels inside you. That's chilling.
It really is, but Jung saw it differently.
Completely. He saw pain as a vital messenger of the soul, an alarm of the unconscious, the deep self trying to tell you something important.
I liked that analogy of depression as the lady in black.
Right. Invite her in, have coffee, listen. Don't just slam the door or try to silence her immediately.
Which is totally counter to our impulse.
Our impulse is numb, distract, fix. But the sources suggest suffering often sticks around because there's an internal conflict.
Like a part of you wants to grow, change.
And another part, usually the ego, wants to stay safe and familiar. Pain is the friction between that call for transformation and the resistance to it.
So these big shifts, these growth periods, they involve a kind of mourning.
Yeah, an internal process of death and rebirth, letting go of old beliefs, old patterns, toxic ties. It's definitely an intense process.
Sounds like it, but potentially transformative.
Hugely. Because when your defenses are down, when you're feeling vulnerable, that's when you can see yourself most clearly without the usual masks.
That's when suffering becomes sacred, a catalyst.
That's the idea. It's not a dead end. It's part of the journey towards individuation. The challenge isn't avoiding the dark valley. It's finding the courage to walk through it.
Knowing there's growth on the other side.
Facing the discomfort, exploring what's underneath the pain instead of just looking for the escape hatch.
Okay, so individuation, it seems like the ultimate goal for becoming, unshakable, but the sources are also realistic. It's tough.
Very tough. They point out not many people even consciously start the journey, let alone finish it, because it involves unlearning what you think you are.
Which can feel more threatening than external rejection.
Absolutely. You're questioning your core identity. The sources call it life's pull beyond survival. The unconscious pushes stuff up, demanding you deal with it.
And that means dismantling the persona, the masks we wear.
Yeah, the mask of collective convenience. One source uses the image of tearing off your own skin to find what's underneath. It's intense.
Wow, but the result is becoming untouchable. Not in a literal sense, but...
Not impervious, no. But untouchable because you've faced your inner monsters, your shame, insecurities, anger. You've looked them in the eye.
So they don't control you from the shadows anymore.
Exactly. And that gives you this deep internal clarity. A sense of self that doesn't need constant external validation.
You don't need everyone to like you or to win every argument.
Because you know who you are. Fundamentally, your anchor is internal.
So true emotional armor isn't a hard shell.
No, it's an integrated conscious core. You still feel pain, but it doesn't break you. Hurt happens, but you don't lose yourself in it.
The sources also mentioned potential loneliness on this path.
But maybe not loneliness from rejection, more like a natural distancing. You outgrow old ways of being, old hiding places. You no longer fit where you once hid.
That makes sense. It's a sign of growth, maybe.
Often, yeah. As you become more authentic, some connections might shift or fade. It's part of aligning with your true self.
And the final key piece seems to be consciousness as a shield. Not toughness, but clarity.
Exactly. The ability to just observe your inner world, thoughts, feelings, patterns without judgment. To know your triggers. That awareness is the real protection.
Protection not by blocking things out, but by understanding their impact on you.
Precisely.
So wrapping this up, the big message is, no external shield works if we're unaware of our inner world.
That's the core of it. Awakening, as they put it, is a daily choice. Look within, take responsibility for your feelings, stop blaming the outside.
And that Jung quote, again, feels even more relevant now.
Yeah.
What you resist persists. What you accept transforms.
Fighting against our fears and insecurities. It's exhausting and ultimately futile.
So instead of striving for perfection or total control,
The sources say true emotional immunity is not hardness. It is clarity. It's not about more armor. It's about more awareness.
understanding your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, that takes the power away from external events.
It diminishes their power to derail you, yes. You still feel, but you don't drown. You don't lose yourself.
I like the diver analogy they use.
Yeah, the surface dweller gets tossed by every wave, but the diver who goes deep finds silence, stability, and power underneath, less vulnerable to the surface storms.
So living from that integrated place, awareness, acceptance, the world might still try to knock you down.
But it no longer finds where to hit you in that same devastating way. It's not about immunity. It's about transforming your relationship to the challenges.
So for you, the listener, as you think about all this, maybe consider where your energy is going right now. Is it mainly focused on building those external defenses? Or is it starting to turn towards cultivating that deeper inner awareness? Perhaps becoming truly unshakable isn't about avoiding the waves, but learning to navigate your own depths. What might shift if you consciously chose to turn towards those inner landscapes, even the uncomfortable ones? As always, the journey continues within you.